pros in that sense. We've been doing this for years and years and years. We still had to practice. We still had to make sure that we had all of our ducks in a row, right? That's what they kept saying. They're like, "You guys are pros." Yeah, we didn't feel like pros at that. We were trying to get it all tied together. It doesn't matter your level of expertise. You still have to practice and iron out as many of the details as you possibly can, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially
I now have split screen where I have that window right behind the camera
Nice.
so that I can see Marty and Jeff perfectly. I got to look a little to the left to see Steve and myself, but I can look into the camera and not even be faked away to look away to anything else.
But you know what? That's okay if you don't see me. You don't have to see me. I'm okay with that. I'm just the guy that pushes the buttons here.
I got to get my...
All right. Did we get a notification that we're live on Facebook yet?
Live on Facebook. I'm
Woohoo!
watching that.
Okay, good.
Hi, everybody on Facebook. Hey,
And
Sandra.
and
Sandra McKenna.
yes, we're also live on Get Vocal, so that's up. So guys, we're just getting here in pre-show. We've got Joe here with us, and Joe Zahitis. He is a viewer that sent in the video last week. If you guys missed it, go back and check it out. But he's got a ton of questions for us and wants some suggestions. So we're going to take today to do that. So I hope you guys got some insight to it as well, because you guys can get involved with the show too. So we're in pre-show. And Jeff is back with his lovely audio this week. It's so great.
Yes, brought to you by the Voice Actors of America.
Marta, welcome on LinkedIn. You guys that are coming in. Again, I hope the LinkedIn comments start facilitating correctly this week. If not, go over to the Telestream Wirecast Facebook page and throw comments in there, and Marty will be able to get them over.
I'm going to unplug that for the show.
So Joe's getting a first-hand, I guess, look and feel of what it's like to go into pre-show and get everything dialed in before you go live.
Yep.
It's okay.
This is why we have pre-show.
That's right.
I didn't even think of that. I got my cell phone shut off. I didn't even think about the office line.
Oh, yeah. Cell phones. Well, and so that's something, too, we can get into in the show. A lot of us use for audio, we use compressors, limiter gate combos, because if the phone rings, it kind of deadens that. It just kind of, if you set the decibel setting, I mean, you'll still hear it, but not as bad as if it's like right next to you. So those are different things we can get into during the show. Because Jeff's a master
Adams.
at that.
Yes.
I'm just trying to bring it up on my phone.
Okay.
Facebook Live.
Oh,
I see a live stream that says it was started 2 minutes ago, but it looks like it's there. It goes. It was showing episode 5 for about a minute.
Okay.
That's good.
All right. And we've got the infamous 4-box today. I think this is the first time we've ever used a 4-box.
That's awesome.
So, and then next week we've got a really cool show for you guys. A lot of you guys have been asking about mobile broadcasting. So I enlisted the help. Actually, he volunteered his services. I'm not going to lie. He said, I heard you guys were talking about mobile broadcasting, and he said, I have the perfect solution, and I use that solution. It's LiveU. So he's going to come on and talk about how you can have professional live video remotely. So that's next Thursday. We return Thursday next week, and we should be consistent after that on Thursdays, at least till the end of the year.
That's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So now, Joe, once you master this, then it's time to take your show on the road.
Well, and that's just it, because now I actually took screenshots of all the login stuff, so that I know how to do it and walk people through it. And I can mute this here, yeah?
You can, yeah. I believe you can mute right on your end.
So
you're muted.
Yep, working.
Yep,
perfect. Nice.
Just so I can tell others how to do that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
And Brad's saying it looks clean on Get Vocal, which is nice. Maybe they're...
Oh, okay, yeah, there's some folks. Dr. Vibe is
great.
in the house on Get Vocal. Welcome, Dr. Vibe. We got Lindsay. Guys, welcome. We're just getting kind of tuned in here. I'm glad Marty's paying attention to the chat.
Yeah, well, I'm on Facebook. And that's part of the challenge, I guess, with all this stuff, right? We all trying to take one, but yeah, I'm looking at...
And also, Brad can help facilitate questions. So if you see Brad Llewellyn around, he will make sure that we get questions. And Joe, I think I did send you the link to the Discord chat. I believe I sent it in email.
Yep, I'm already in it. And I was going to mention to you that whenever we do stuff live as a group, even gaming, Discord is always the default failover comms, because when you couldn't hear me and I couldn't hear you, I was actually typing in Discord because that's kind of our failover.
I was messaging you on LinkedIn because I didn't see anything on Discord here for some
Oh
reason.
yeah, now that I brought up LinkedIn, I'm seeing that.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't go into the room. That was my fault on Discord. Now I'm in the general area. But there should be a hashtag on social room. Are you able to see that? Hashtag on-social. Maybe that's why I didn't see it. I think
I couldn't find it to get at it. I'll admit it. I know Discord only well enough to do what I do on it. I'm not like I'm a pro yet.
No. Same here. So again, this is a work in progress, but this is something we want to do for everybody, get everybody into one central chat. So okay.
Hey, John Mahoney on Facebook.
John's a good guy too. So if you
probably one of the nicest guys in video production and video and our whole niche here. One of the
we're gonna have to get
gems.
John on in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you guys, he does a show every Friday.
Check out his group too.
Yeah, Streaming Alchemy. So you guys want to go check another broadcasting show out. He's a good friend here of the show. He uses Wirecast. He uses a bunch of different things, but go check out John's show every Friday. I believe it's at 2 p.m. Eastern. I don't always get to catch it live, but I do watch it.
Yeah, and just so John, if you're watching, I would love to watch it live. I have a standing production at 2:00 on Fridays.
I usually have
podcast
meetings.
production I do. Yeah, so normally I watch it on the replay, and I'll tell you, John's talk about professionalism. I know we had a show on that. If you want to know, he's definitely pro on camera, and they do a great job, and it puts a lot of work into it. So check out his show. You're going to learn a lot.
So we're getting some comments here on Facebook, and I know this is pre-show, and we usually kind of address some of these. Somebody's saying that they can't stream vertical video on YouTube. So unless you're using an encoder like Wirecast that's out there, or your cell phone, that's the only way you're going to do vertical video. But here's the caveat. You're still going to have the 16:9 frame of video because that's what YouTube's default is. So you'll have all these black bands on the side.
And I'll add something to that, Stephen. The only time that doesn't if you watch it on a web page, they do make it responsive, and on the mobile they do make it responsive. So it'll kind of conform to vertical. It's not the most ideal thing to do, because especially if you want to have it viewable in most formats. I mean, Stephen, we've had this discussion about vertical versus horizontal. If that's the only choice, then go for it. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's not something. The day of widescreen, I mean, I get it. I do. But I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm just not a fan of vertical video. We'll leave it at that. We had a little rant about that a couple weeks ago.
It wasn't too long ago.
It wasn't too long. I'm sorry. I'm not like, I yell at family members when they're standing there with their cell phones pointed straight up, kind of like we are right now. And they're trying to capture this moment that they want to save forever, and I'm like, turn the phone, just rotate it just a little bit
for me, just for me.
I'm like, seriously, even when you're taking pictures, like I love taking pictures this way. I mean, that's the reason the camera body's like that. It's not up and down. Like I'll do up and down if I'm doing like a selfie and I don't want all kinds of junk in the background, but I don't really take selfies either. So,
well, think of it this way. The human body, the human eyes are horizontal, right? That's how everything's designed.
That's true. We don't have eyes going this way.
Exactly.
See, you never know what you're going to get in a pre-show here of On Social. And Nazim just joined us over here on Get Vocal. Welcome, Nazim. I'm going to refresh LinkedIn because I only see one comment, but I have a feeling there's more here. Hi, guys. Looking for sounding great. Curtis Brooks. Welcome, Curtis, on LinkedIn.
I noticed on LinkedIn the video and all of the feed is delayed by quite a few seconds.
It is.
So might the comments.
Okay. Well, Joe, if you see anything, you're welcome to watch it on LinkedIn. Same with you, Jeff. If there's anything that pops up, just kind of interrupt something so we can address any of
Sure.
that.
Yeah, I'll be checking when I'm seeing that I'm not in the 4 box because I don't want to be completely turned around and doing that. But
No,
I
totally.
do have LinkedIn back here.
So we get about 2 minutes. So if you have any other questions in regards to this social media, video, live, whatever you have, go ahead and throw it in there. We'll be happy to address it before we go live. Once we go live, we try not to get into a Wirecast tech show, and I'm saying that with the utmost respect to everybody. I understand everybody's got questions and comments about it, but we really want it to be a generalized show because not everybody has Wirecast, and we like to think that we bring a lot of value to broadcasting and video professionals out there, as well as we're going to get into social aspects. So we kind of want to leave it wide open as opposed to just honing in on Wirecast, if that makes sense. I hope everybody's cool with that. So, but I know, Jeff, you jump in like earlier today. We were in the one group, Wirecast users, answering some Wirecast questions. So we're happy to do that off show.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, the world is Wirecast is wonderful. I use it, but the world is bigger than Wirecast when you're talking about video for the web and for streaming. And so there's a lot of ground to cover there. But absolutely, we definitely try to help.
Yeah, and Telestream knows that. That's kind of why they wanted this to be a broad show about on social. I mean, that's kind of what we came up with. So, all right, it's 2:00. Joe, are you ready?
I am.
Okay, he's looking good. He's feeling good. He's sounding good. So we're ready.
Nervous, but fine.
Oh, don't be nervous.
No,
So-
don't be nervous. It looks good. Sound good.
We're going to go dark here, folks, and we'll come back and we'll get the show started. So stay with us. Hey guys, welcome to another edition of On Social. I am your host, Stephen Haywood, and along with one of my co-hosts, we've got Mr. Marty McPadden from Podjam.tv. Welcome, sir.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing well, and we've also got the voice of reason back with us, Mr. Jeffrey Fitzgerald from JeffandHighDef.tv. Welcome.
Hello, Steve. Hey, no, it's great to be here as usual.
It's great to have you guys back on. It feels like a full panel today, but we got a really special guest with us today. But before we get to that, we want to do a little bit of housekeeping here, if you will. For those of you out there, this is a prime example and opportunity for you to send in a video of your setup, what you're doing. Maybe you have questions. Maybe you want our suggestions. Hopefully this show, we're up here to episode 14, I believe, has inspired you to take a walk on the professional side. So with that being said, you can send in your video. You don't have to come on the show. But if you decide to come on the show, we will welcome that the following week. And what we've done is we've actually had an individual take us up on that. We've got joining us Mr. Joseph Zahidis from Zahidis.com. And Joe, it's great to have you here with us.
It's good to be here. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So going forward here, guys, we want to put it out to everybody. Join us on the platform. I think it'll be fun. It's a great way we can interact with the community. But we're all going to ask you a bunch of different questions, Joe. So we're going to kind of throw you in the hot seat a little bit. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about what you're doing, and some of the things that you kind of want assistance with, and what you're trying to get through all this.
So what I'm building is a kind of a professional podcast. It's a business-based podcast that's focused on the financial industry as well as the payments industry. I've been in the payments industry for a while, and as part of building this, My goal is to have a professional podcast that has good video, good audio, and a lot of educational content that comes with it. That's obviously the basis for it. But I would like it to come off a little better than just sitting on my laptop with the camera that's on it and using that as a way of presenting social media.
That's a good goal to have in mind, because that's kind of what we've done. I know, Marty, you've spent a lot of time in this area. What are some of your thoughts based on the video that you saw last week? And Jeff, I don't know if you got a chance to go back and look at the video, but Marty, we'll start with you. What were some of your takeaways from that video from last week?
Well, I certainly I know Joe is just starting out, and what I appreciate is Joe is his main business is nothing to do with video or audio or production or anything of that sort. But what he does recognize is he recognizes the value and the need to be able to communicate about his particular business and get the word out. And mainly, you do that. And I'm happy to hear him say he wants to do podcasts, maybe video podcasts, and you want to communicate your knowledge about a particular subject, and you really want to kind of become a thought leader in your area by sharing tips and by sharing knowledge and things like that. And the thing that I really was impressed by is Joe's willingness to seek out quality from the very start. Now, nothing to say that it has to be perfect out of the gate. It's going to be an evolving process, but your mindset is in the right place, that, okay, you recognize that not only does the information have to be good, but the presentation has to be good, and also the production quality has to be good. Because, Stephen, we've talked about this on previous shows, where it's that first impression, especially when you're starting to build an audience. Now, Joe, I'm not sure how much an audience you have on social video, on different platforms, but if you're just starting out and building an audience, that first impression is going to be crucial, because nobody knows you yet. And if they see someone that is taking the effort to make sure that they're communicating properly, presenting their ideas, and also doing it in a nice way. So good, like how you have it here, and we talked about in pre-show, one of the first things you did was position your camera, and it was you positioned it at eye level or slightly above. We talked about in the previous show, and it shows like both of our shots match. You have your camera positioned well. You also have nice even lighting. You have a microphone that's right close by, and your audio is nice and clean. So you're already building that foundation. So when people see you, they say, oh, this guy is taking it seriously. He's making an effort. And so many things, and this is what you're doing right. And so many times people get into this where they say, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to, and then they expect people are just going to watch. And well, it doesn't really show that you're making an effort, because people want to know, like, what is this guy doing? Is he making an effort? Does he care about his business? And I think that's my first impression of what you're doing. And I know we got a long way to go, but that's kind of what struck me first when we first got into this.
Jeff, I know you spend a lot of time on TV, and you've stated numerous times, you're like, well, hey, I'm a prima donna. What are some of the things that you would say? I don't know if you got a chance to watch the video last week, but it was, Joe was very, very, I don't want to say vague, but he showed a lot of potential. But what was your takeaway?
Well, I actually, last week was college move-in week for me, so I didn't get a lot of time to see a lot of it. But I would say, Joe, Marty is absolutely right. The number one thing that you're showing by being here today and just by following what we're doing is that you're already moving that needle forward. You're up in that ante for what that show is going to look like. And, all the fundamentals need to be in place for anybody. Eye level cameras, we want you in focus, not blue, nice warm colors. And obviously for a podcast, the most critical part of this, and it's really this way across the board with video, is that your audio needs to have that nice, warm, reflective sound that really emanates that, hey, this is a podcast you want to listen to. And then from there, with those fundamentals in place, as you know, Joe, it's going to be the content that you're producing that's going to be everything. Consistency is king. And then that content going along with it is going to be where you find the value for your audience. But I would just ask you this, Joe, right now today, what would you say is your biggest challenge in moving into this area? Because this isn't, typical simulcast of a podcast. You're moving into an intentional use of video in this particular arena. What is your biggest challenge in this?
For me, I've been in the payment space, as I said, for many years. So presenting in front of a group of people is not a problem. I am looking right now at a camera. I know you guys are there. I know people are watching, and that's kind of odd. because there's no one giving me feedback other than now I can see Jeff on the camera as well. That probably is the biggest thing for me, is that the content itself is there. So the entire purpose of my interest in being with you guys really honestly is making sure, audio quality. I can already see that I need to soften up the colors a little bit because I'm a little washed out. But just really the production quality of what I'm putting out, the content and everything else. And then I thought I took it away from last week. That's why I did the camera. Got to look into the camera, not look at where you guys, oh, look, I can see myself. Look, that's awesome. It doesn't look that.
It's a really hard thing to stare into, as I said, the abstract netherworld, because you're right, it gives absolutely no feedback. And as human beings, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that little nonverbal validation that, hey, what you have has a little bit of meaning to it, right? But if you get over that hump and understand that it's really nothing but a tunnel, and that there are people on the other side that really resonate with what you're putting out there, and they're identifying with your vibe, and they want to hear and see more, that takes a lot of the pressure off as you go, because it is not the easiest thing in the world to learn. But I believe that eye contact really is critical for making a real connection with your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I kind of take away from your setup, you have a very nice background. That's something that's not really seen amongst a lot of people when we start seeing video. A lot of people start doing what we do, where we put a TV behind us, or they'll take a green screen or whatnot. But you actually have a real representation of a set, if you will. You have kind of sort of what I have set up behind here, not just the TV. So I always took away from the video last week, you should really work with that. That is a fantastic set, gives you that professionalism that you're looking for your business. And one of the things that I would say, and again, this is just a tiny little critique, and I don't know if anybody else agrees with me here on this, but that's fine if you don't. One of the things that I always say, and I noticed today you're wearing, it looks like a white shirt, okay?
Light blue.
Oh, it's light blue. Okay, so it's coming across a little white, and I stay away from any real light colors, because if your camera's not white balanced really good, it starts to make you glow. If you notice, Jeff, he always comes on with these bright colors, or like the nice pink. I'm more of the dark. No, but I'm being serious. I don't think I've ever seen Jeff or Marty wear a white button-down shirt on camera. And it's not a knock against anybody. This is just something, hey, most people wear white button downs. But it helps it helps keep you from, I guess, blowing out. Would that be a good word to use, blowing out on camera?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The camera is looking for the brightest source to clamp down on when you've got it set to auto iris. So if the brightest source, it says, hey, I can get that down to normal levels, everything else drops with it. And so everything around you will darken down. If you're not lit well, your eyes may even look a little dark, those kind of things. So you want to find that middle ground, something that gives you a little bit of a look, but it's not on the extreme of either pure black, pure white. But the days of that having real impact are beginning to fade, because cameras are becoming better at their gamma levels and their quality of being able to fine tune them. And that's the other thing, is that if you're running a webcam from Logitech, there's the Logitech software that you can use to adjust some of those curves, is what they call them. It's not just the one knob and you're done kind of thing. So whatever kind of a camera you're using, get into it and kind of find out whether or not there's more control in there, because you can really dial that in really nicely and get exactly the look you want, where it's warm and rich, and yet you can kind of see everything. And if you need more contrast, you can fix that. But yeah, it's what the main reason for it, Steve, is just, especially back in the early days, wearing white would kill everything else.
Yep. And one of the things, Joe, we wanted to ask you is, are you happy with your set, or do you want to improve it? Do you want to add things to it, or are you just going to keep it like the backdrop? Because we noticed in the video that you did light it up. That was one thing that I think you had some soft, if I recall, soft boxes in the back, right, by the fireplace?
They're actually on. Yep, they're on right now, actually. Yep.
Okay, so you're obviously trying to light that up, but have you thought about maybe using some colored lights, maybe, to kind of give it some uplift on it? Or what do you guys think? Do you agree with that, or?
I haven't bought the colored gels, but I've thought about it. I got
Okay.
a buddy of mine who suggests that I should. So yeah,
Okay.
that's what I'm here. And in terms of the question to ask is, from a production quality standpoint, because that's kind of what this is about. Audio, I know, is key. I've spent enough time kind of watching a number of podcasts and other video producers in the YouTube world. The video is kind of the next piece, how well that's set up. The content obviously is key and critical, but okay, what are we going to do to up that game? And then from my perspective, there's a lot of natural light coming in today. We've got a lot of rain going on here. That might be washing that out. should I light it differently? Is there a better way to do that? Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
I would say, I'll add to this. I would say this: natural light is probably the best quality light. The only downside is that it doesn't stay the same throughout the day. So depending on when you're going to do it, like I used to be a photographer back in the day, a wedding photographer. And so I would dream of having a cloudy day. Cloudy days are the best, for taking portraits, or even just after it rains, because the colors are so vibrant and the lighting is so even. It's almost like a natural umbrella or natural softbox.
Mhm.
But the problem that you have is, especially if you're setting up for a show, your light is going to change throughout the day. So what I would recommend, especially an indoor studio, the more you could, I would try to default to, unless you have a very dependable natural light source that is going to be the same every time. And again, it changes during the year too. So what is one thing during the summer is going to be different in the winter because of the sun angle. But what I would do is, if you're indoors, I would probably default to artificial light and work with that, because then you can get it dialed in. And it does take some time. I'm still trying to get my lighting dialed in. I'm always fiddling with my lighting and trying to get it dialed in, because it's just such a fine, adjustment or whatever, just to get it dialed. The positioning, the intensity, the backlighting. It's very, so probably in your case, Joe, I would probably default to the artificial lighting. The other thing I think Stephen was mentioning is the accent lighting on your set. Like, your set is pretty good. I mean, it's a nice looking room. You got the fireplace. It's visually interesting without being distracting. But
Mhm.
you can do a lot of interesting things, like LED color LEDs, maybe something underneath the mantle, or I mean, and you go on YouTube, you can see examples of this where a lot of people use these color LEDs to give you, and I think that Stephen was mentioning that, to give it kind of a different look. So say if you have graphics in your show and it has a certain color palette, you can kind of accent that by lighting your background that way, and using these LEDs, especially these LED lights, whether they're incandescent style or whether they're like ribbon lights, they'll usually can change color, and they'll come with apps, and you can change the color depending on what the mood is that you want to set, or the kind of the color palette of your show, and it can add a lot of dramatic effect, and it can really complement what you're doing as far as your set goes. So
Yeah, Joe, I've got a couple thoughts on it too, because what they're saying is spot on. If you look at the shot that you've got right now, you've actually got warm lighting that is artificial coming from one side, which is that nice warm orange tint, and you've got the natural lighting, which always on camera usually will have a natural blue lighting if you're not white balancing. So what you've got there, while it's not anywhere near critically bad or anything, you've got two different color temperatures going on, and so if you wanted to use that natural light, and you have the kind of artificial stand light or what you're using that has a dial on it to let you dial in the different color temperature, you could either gel that light or dial it in to match that outdoor lighting color temperature. And that way, when you have it all balanced, everything on both sides of you would be the nice same color. So there's a little bit of play there you may want to look at. I tend to favor the more warm look. I like the more orange a little bit in the skin tones and things like that. And the other thing is, when they're talking about the accent lighting and then the background, one of the things you've got to think about with lighting is not sometimes how much light you add, but where you can take it away. So when you have the ability to block that window or manage how much light is in a certain spot, then you have the ability to recolor it somehow. So there's some thoughts there to kind of figure out, like, where would you want to do some of these things. But in terms of just the color balance, that's probably something that Marty was dead on with, is that when the sun is sunny and then it's cloudy and you've got the window and you're using that, your color will change from that nice sun color to that color you're seeing kind of right now. And so while it's not bad, a lot of people use it, it is something that you have more control over than maybe you think.
Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things, Joe, I was thinking, I was talking to Marty about last week, and I noticed, I'm going to pull up your shot here so you can actually see it. You have that nice picture frame back there. And I said, he could incorporate a little bit of green screen with this, because if not necessarily that picture, but you could get another frame that size.
Great idea.
Yeah, and you
There you
take
go.
a piece of fabric like this that's green. Okay, I have a small one here. I just want to show it because it's with doing like photography. But let's say you take that picture frame down, put the green inside of it. You could actually have like Jeff's a prime example for today. You can pretend Jeff has his guests up on his TV monitor, but in actuality he has the show going. You could almost do something like that without spending thousands of dollars on a bunch of TVs in your in your setup, and just put your guest up on that backdrop that you have, or you could put them wherever. But I mean, you can incorporate the really nice background that you have with a piece of fabric that you can get at a fabric store for like under $10, right?
I'll go you one better. I already have frames. I can actually frame it
There
and
you
have it
go.
set up, and then just take that picture down and put the green screen up when I run the show, and I'm going to use that. That's an awesome idea.
Then you'll have your
Yeah,
guest.
and keep in mind for folks who are using apps like Wirecast,
Yep.
you have the ability to actually do picture in picture if you layer
Right.
them in the properties, and you can kind of do it that way too. And maybe you can do a little bit things that are a little different. But it's a great idea, Steve.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool because you don't necessarily even have to put a guest. Let's say it's just you want to advertise logos, like Jeff was saying, you want to do picture in picture, like what we're doing right now. You can do that, but then when you go to your tight shot, and let's say you're advertising for a sponsor, you could have that right up there on the picture frame when they go to it, and it's not costing you what a TV would cost you.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Virtual
a thought.
signage.
Yeah, just a thought. But that was something I took away, anyways.
It's funny because Joe, I'm not sure if you've seen this. In my previous life, I used to work for ESPN. I worked for them for almost 20 years and was in production. And one of the things that they would do, they started this probably back in the 90s or early 2000s, the virtual signage on the backstop in baseball stadiums. You'll see the sponsor messages. That's all green screen technology. And it was even a more advanced technology where they would do some mathematical formula where it would be virtual reality where the picture would stay in the same spot even though the cameras were moving. What Steven was mentioning with the green screen, obviously it doesn't have that level of sophistication, but the green screen gives you another option. And even what Jeff was saying, picture in picture, positioning it, different creative ideas like that can really kind of spice up your productions. And even just a sponsor message, making it part of the set is a great idea. But little tricks like that, and Steve and I, we were talking about that last time, where you're talking about doing the arcade videos and doing patterns on the wall, and doing some creative things with putting the green in between the stripes and putting putting characters that move along there. And I mean, you can have some real fun with that stuff, and it's really the sky's the limit as far as how creative you want to be. But I think the key with all this stuff is you want to set aside some time to test it. So if you're using a program like Wirecast, you can record it. And what's great is you can test it. You can record the output, play it back, see what works, what doesn't work, and you can really get it dialed in over time. But, have some fun with it, get creative, and you can do some really cool stuff with that.
So I want to show you the other shot, like Marty was talking about here. I'm going to kind of cut to this camera. The camera's kind of a little crooked, but you guys, it wasn't meant for this. So this is something like I'm working on right now for my son and myself, just to do some video game reviews and whatnot. But you can see I have that fake brick wall there. It's just a muslin that I picked up for like $15 on Amazon. But if you notice, I have green screen behind it. My goal is to put some holes in that thing that look like a bomb or something blew up in there, so that the green pokes through. And like Marty was saying, like I could have little video game characters kind of popping out there. And I just took a piece of trim that I had. I hung it up on the wall with 2 screws and put a little game over light on there. And I think there's a vintage controller up there. And then I have one of my arcade cabinets sitting right next to it. So my son's sitting there doing a game review. It kind of gives that feel. But again, like I'm not using a complete green screen. I'm using a platform to utilize a specific tool of it to get a desired effect that I'm looking for. And so just trying to keep it simple, right? But professional. And now at this point, Joe's head is ready to combust because we've been throwing all this stuff at him. And he's taking it all in.
It's actually, I am going to take you guys back one step though, in the context of, okay, this is good, great office, great setup. I mean, I got it as a backdrop. If you were to give suggestions to anyone starting this process, what would you say some of the biggest up your games are? Okay, I'm maybe in the middle of the pack. I'm not great, but I'm a little further along maybe than others. What would you say are things they could do? Don't use the camera on the laptop. better mic? I mean, what would be kind of the first up gamers that you guys would say that people should do?
I'll digress to. We'll let Jeff start with this one, and then Marty, and then I'll kind of finish up. But
Sure.
before we do that, it just to hone this for you, Jeff. For anybody that's starting out, get these things out of your head. Don't start diving into green screen. You got to learn how a camera works first, and I think Jeff will probably allude to that here.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I mean, I would say that some of those big game changers absolutely involve what we've already talked about. Some of them don't, because it's really what you're saying in the video and on the podcast and what you're putting out. Those things are just as important, if not more important, many times. And so, I mean, the game changers that you start with are the fundamentals we've talked about: good lighting, good sound, you're in focus, and you have a plan. You've got an intentional understanding of what you're doing when you go into that. So when you start off your show, you may decide to create an open for it. But I think one of the big mistakes we see a lot of times on YouTube is you see somebody that might be new and they're recording from their garage, and then they've got a 30-second open that was done by Fiverr that looks like Monday Night Football, and then it comes back looking like cable access. Sometimes you need to dial down the other elements to make sure that you're not making one thing look worse than the other. But it may be having an open that's 5 seconds. It's that talks about this week's show and that kind of thing. And then from there, it's that hook, that initial 15 or 20 seconds of why somebody should give you more time. Because I say it all the time, we're competing with every video above us and below us in the timeline, and it's a hard thing now with billions and billions of options. The whole goldfish mentality is true. People have about 5 seconds of what they can remember, and then they either make a decision or they keep watching. So the big game changes are, I think you've already taken care of on the production side for where you're at. Where do you start? You start with what you've got, and you up that. That's what you're doing with the good lighting and those things. The other thing is just story. And Marty, I know you know this as much as anybody, being a podcast expert. It's the combination of the production and the creative that really makes just a killer podcast.
I mean, that's a great segue, Jeff. Couldn't agree more. When you just said there was perfect. I always like to say it's presentation, production, and content. You gotta take all three. A lot of people will get one or two of those right. Some people might just be, I got to get every piece of gear in the world, and they don't know how to use it, and their content is really bad. Other people, their content is great, but they're not really presenting it well. They don't really want to practice, and their production's all off. So getting back to what you were saying about getting started, I think, Joe, you have really taken a lot of the key steps already, like Jeff was saying, to get started. What I always recommend to folks when I take them through is, if they're starting from scratch, and this is just the very beginning, and to keep it simple, one of the best things you can do, and I always start with the audio, is get a decent USB microphone. We always say, and also dynamic. What I would recommend, and again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's plug and play. ATR 2100, the Samsung Q2U. These are dynamic microphones, and that's the key too. A lot of people get the condenser mics, and they don't have the room for it. It's echoey and all that stuff. Get a decent dynamic microphone. They're like $60 or $70, real easy plug and play to operate, and it makes you sound like $1 million out of the gate. Now, are they high? Are they this kind of quality? No, but they're not that far away. And even what you did there, Joe, you have a nice microphone there. It's I'm not sure what microphone do you have there?
It's an XLR. It's an XLR.
XLR.
I'm sorry. It's an MXL. It's an MXL.
MXL. Do you know if it's dynamic or condenser? I'm not hearing a lot of background. You must be in a good room if it's condenser.
Well, it's 48-volt Phantom going through a sound panel.
Oh, it's a Phantom Power, so it's a condenser. Yeah. So you're in a good room. So normally condensers are tough to work with because they require a room that doesn't have a lot of hard surfaces, and they can be echoey, but your sound is good. So, but I would recommend getting a nice dynamic microphone. You talk close to it. That's an easy setup. Number two, just get a decent webcam. The Logitech C920 is good to start out with. Plug that in, get it eye level like you did. Again, just starting out, get just a couple of umbrella lights, just nice even lighting. And with the webcams, even lighting is very critical because they don't have a lot of dynamic range. So you want to avoid hot spots or cold spots or highs and lows in your lighting, and nice even lighting. That's it. To start out with, your background should be non-distracting. Keep it simple. Don't go, like Steven said, don't go with a green screen. I'm using a green screen here, but it takes a lot to dial in. That's something more advanced. Start with a nice simple background, as long as it doesn't take away from your show, maybe hopefully adds to it or complements it. That's a good thing. And start there. And then work on your content, like Jeff's saying. Nothing's more important than having a good story to tell, and then work on your presentation. Well, Joe, you talked about this, looking into the camera. That takes practice. That is not a natural thing to do, like we're all doing here. Looking in the camera, practice your presentation, practice getting rid of the ums and the filler words. That takes, believe me, it takes practice. Practice pausing and slowing down your speech and not talking so fast. When we're nervous, we tend to talk fast. You got to pace yourself. And again, if you have something like Wirecast, record yourself and watch yourself back. I have clients that I do podcast that I always have to remind, listen to your podcast. It's good for your own good. I know you're busy, but listen to it because it's going to make you better, So those are my quick tips, and then you can go from there. And like Steven says, do not go with what we're doing here. This is all stuff you can go for, but keep it simple and practice and make sure you have a good story to tell.
And I want to add to that too, since they covered all the production side. I'm doing a lot of the production here. I'm the producer. I'm hosting, but I'm fortunate I have guys that can really carry themselves on camera and on mic. That gives me the freedom to do a lot more in the production. One of the things that I would suggest, and this is something that I learned when I first started, was don't jump in to having guests on right away, because what that does is introduce a lot of extra complexity that doesn't need to be there. Sometimes if you're starting out, you get 5 episodes in and you want to start doing this, just get a static picture of the person, play their audio through your mixer, and just have that conversation with them just to kind of ease yourself into it. Get used to switching. It's a practice thing. Do some, I know everybody wants to jump in and get video guests. It's the way things are going. But honestly, the content that you're talking about, especially if this is for business, if you can't deliver the message, like last week, here's a prime example, and not to bring up your misfortune, Jeff, but it's a good learning tip for this point. Jeff's video last week was stellar. It was off the chart. But anybody that watched the show, some reason he had an audio problem. Instead of continuing through it, Jeff goes, you know what? I'll see you guys next week. Or I'm sorry, this was 2 weeks ago. He says, I'll just be back, and I'll get it rectified. Because he wasn't able to deliver the kind of message that he wanted to put out to everybody. So the best thing to do is just to step back and say, my audio's not that good, so what am I going to do, right? So it doesn't matter if you have a picture there of a person static. If they can hear that audio clear, that person's talking into a microphone, and you're delivering great content, they're not going to care if that person's moving. I mean, if you can do it, great. But like Marty said, practice, practice, practice. As a producer, I don't just sit down. My stuff is streamlined. I understand how it works, but it's like playing an instrument, right? I practice a lot. It sounds ridiculous, but I do. I practice as if I'm doing a show for fake. Do I mess up? Yeah, I've messed up quite a few times on some of these shows, but you know what? It happens. But it gets you into that muscle memory, and it helps you to get going. When you throw all these elements at once into a production, people have said that to me before. Don't you wish you had 10 years ago what you have now? And I always say no, because I didn't understand how a camera worked. I didn't understand what the f-stop did. I didn't know the difference between dynamic and condenser. I didn't understand putting foam on your walls that's soundproofing is going to improve the audio without buying anything else. These are things that I learned by doing it and scrapping and putting things together, and learned how to troubleshoot because I was cobbling everything together. I still say that's one of the best ways that you're going to get better as a broadcaster, is when you got to cobble things together. It sounds funny, but the reality is when you're doing that, you learn, your mind starts going into the troubleshooting realm. I mean, Marty, what was it? A couple of weeks ago, one of the broadcasting machines wouldn't even start. And here it was just a bad power cord, but I got on the phone with Marty, and 2 brains are better than 1, and we were sitting there, and 10 minutes we figured out what the problem was. But it's from the
knowing how your equipment works, like you just said, Steven, is so key in practice. And also, I'll throw something out about Steven. You'll notice Steven's producing the show, he's switching it, and you don't even know he's looking down. He's looking down. I can pick up, I know what I'm looking for, but the reason why it looks so smooth is because he practices it like a musician. musicians are, good musicians are good because they practice and they can play. If you're a guitar player, you can play the guitar without even looking at the fretboard. I mean, you're just playing. It's feel. And like what you're doing, you're playing the TriCaster controller. It's by feel. I mean, you just know you have a flow to the show, but it doesn't, like you said, Stephen, great advice. And I'm glad to hear you say that you wouldn't trade places because you learn how things work and you built it over time. And that's why everything looks the way it does now. So very, very key.
So I hopefully, Joe, that answered your question as for people getting started, because we're going to have to wrap this up, unfortunately.
Well, I appreciate it. You guys, this has been awesome. I appreciate being on. I appreciate all the input. I'm certainly going to be coming back to all of you for more input. Thanks for taking the time with me today. And this was awesome. This was fantastic.
So what I think we should do here, guys, we should issue him a challenge. We want to see where you're going to be at in, the next month. We want updates. We want to see how you progress. We want to share it with the community. So, in a month, let's see what you got. Let's see what you've taken it, because I think that's great encouragement for people to see that, hey, you've been following the show, you stepped up your game. Now look, this is where I'm at. Now I'm getting this many people watching, and I've been able to incorporate all this cool stuff. That's what we want to see. We want to see it over the next couple months.
I will tell you that is the goal. That is entirely the goal. Now it's time.
Well, you know what, sir? I think you're on the right path. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joseph Zahaitis, and you can visit him at zahaitis.com. Pretty much you can follow him on Facebook and all those other places. Just look up his name there. I have it on the lower third.
Yeah, there's not too many of us around.
Well, it was great to have you, and I appreciate you going into uncharted waters with us here today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. It's been great. Appreciate it, guys.
Absolutely. And also want to thank Mr. Jeffrey Fitzgerald from JeffandHighDef.tv. Thank you, sir.
Oh, no problem. I love being here as usual.
And make sure you guys connect with him on social media. Like I said, he's always in the different Wirecast forums, adding useful information, and you guys can always pick his brain on any of your setups off camera. We're always happy to help with that. And then also Mr. Marty McPadden from podjam.tv. And he said he got his website updated last week. I don't know if anybody caught that.
Yeah, I'm slowly adding to it, some other than one page, so it's getting there.
So you guys go check him out. You can like him on social media. Marty McPadden is pretty much everywhere. And guys, pretty much I'm known as the Tech Buzz everywhere, but you can find me as well. Just look for Stephen Haywood. I'm happy to be here. And again, we want to give a big shout out to Telstream. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this and allowing us to do this show. Because, I mean, honestly, without Telstream support in this and this being a Telstream branded show, we wouldn't be able to do this show. So kudos to them. And if you guys haven't, go check out Wirecast. Go to Telstream.net. There's 3 different flavors of Wirecast. You could start. Joe talked about getting started. You want to switch cameras and do what we're doing here, you can do that with Wirecast, and it starts at $249, and there might even be some sales going on. Go poke around. All the way up to the Wirecast Pro. You got plenty of upgrade opportunities out there. So make sure you guys go check that out and give that a shout. And we'll be back next Thursday. I don't know what the date is off the top of my head, but we're going to be back on Thursdays from here on out. And so we'll see you guys next week, and get those videos sent in. We want to see them.
That's great.
Yes, we want to see them. And ladies out there, if you're doing a broadcast, we had some requests for some ladies to come on here and show us some setups. So we want to see. It's not just a guy's world. We want to see what you guys are doing out there. So feel free to put that out there. And guys, we will see you next time here on Social.